The Texas plains lay under a thick white blanket of snow that Christmas Eve. Wind howled softly through the empty roads, and the sky was dark except for the faint glow of the moon. Every ranch house miles apart shone with the warm flicker of lanterns and laughter. Families gathered by fires, shared stories, and gave thanks for what they had. But not everyone had a roof over their head that night. A young girl named Clara May walked alone along the frozen trail. Her coat was thin, her shoes worn to holes, and her small sack held nothing but a blanket and an old photograph of her mother. Her breath came out in clouds, and her hands trembled with cold. Her mother had passed away the previous winter, leaving Clara to fend for herself. She'd done sewing for strangers, washed clothes for coins, and slept in barns whenever someone took pity on her. But now, on this freezing night, she had nowhere left to go. The snowflakes clung to her lashes as she whispered, "Merry Christmas, Mama. I hope you're somewhere warm." Her legs weakened, and she sank beneath an old oak tree that stood at the crossroads. The world dimmed around her. She drew her blanket tighter, but it did little good. Just before her eyes closed, she heard a sound, the faint rhythm of horse hooves through the snow. Caleb Hunter, a tall and broad-shouldered rancher, rode through the storm on his horse, Dusty. He was heading back from town, where he had delivered firewood and food to the orphanage. It was something he did every year since losing his wife, Eleanor. Caleb was known across the county as a man of few words but immense kindness. As he rode, something by the roadside caught his eye. A dark shape slumped beneath the oak. He slowed Dusty and called out, "Hello there!" "You all right?" There was no answer. Caleb dismounted quickly, snow crunching under his boots. He knelt and saw a young woman, half buried in snow, her lips pale and trembling. "My lord," he murmured, taking off his coat and wrapping it around her shoulders. "You're freezing." Her eyes fluttered open weakly. "I'm sorry, sir. I didn't mean to be here." Caleb's tone softened. "Hush now. You're safe. Let's get you somewhere warm." He lifted her carefully into his arms, mounted his horse, and rode through the storm toward his ranch. The Hunter Ranch stood like a golden beacon in the night, its windows glowing warmly through the snowfall. Smoke curled up from the chimney, carrying the smell of pine and roasted turkey. Caleb's longtime housekeeper, Mrs. Miller, met him at the door. "Good heavens, Mr. Hunter. Who's that you've brought in?" "Found her on the road," Caleb said, stepping inside. "She's near frozen. Get some blankets and broth." Mrs. Miller hurried off while Caleb placed the girl by the fire. Slowly, warmth crept back into her hands and cheeks. When she opened her eyes again, she saw a large stone fireplace, a decorated Christmas tree, and the man who had saved her. "Where am I?" she asked faintly. "At my ranch," Caleb said. "You're safe now." Tears filled her eyes. "You don't even know me. Why are you helping me?" He gave a half smile. "Because it's Christmas Eve, and no one should be alone out there in the cold." She blinked, fighting tears. "My name's Clara May. Nice to meet you, Miss Clara," he replied kindly. "I'm Caleb Hunter." Clara woke the next morning in a soft bed, the first real bed she'd had in months. The scent of coffee and cinnamon filled the air. When she came to the kitchen, Mrs. Miller greeted her warmly. "Well, now look at you," Mrs. Miller said. "A bit of rest did you good." Clara smiled shyly. "Thank you for your kindness." "I'd like to help if you'll let me," Mrs. Miller chuckled. "You've got a spirit in you." "Fine then. Help me bake for tonight's supper." That day, laughter filled the kitchen as they rolled dough and baked pies. Caleb watched quietly from the porch, a faint smile tugging at his lips. He hadn't heard laughter in his house for years, not since Eleanor's passing. That evening, Clara stood before the large pine tree in the main room, hanging a few ornaments Mrs. Miller had kept boxed away. "Would you like to put the star on top?" she asked Caleb shyly. Caleb hesitated, then stepped forward and lifted the golden star. When their hands brushed, warmth spread through the room, more than just from the fire. He set the star in place. "Perfect," he said quietly. Over the next few days, Clara grew stronger. She mended clothes, helped feed the animals, and even sang softly while sweeping the porch. One evening, Caleb found her sitting near the fire, holding the small locket she always carried. "Everything all right?" he asked gently. She nodded. "Just thinking of my mother. She passed last winter. We dreamed of a home like this one. Warm, safe." Caleb sat beside her, the firelight dancing across his face. "I lost someone too," he said softly. "My wife. Been gone 6 years now." Clara's voice was tender. That must have been hard. It was, he admitted. But helping others, it's the only way I know to keep going. Clara smiled faintly. Then I'm glad you found me. You saved me, Mr. Hunter. He looked into her eyes, calm and kind. I think maybe you saved me too. On Christmas night, Clara disappeared into the barn for a few hours. When Caleb came looking, he found her carving a small block of wood with a pocket knife. What are you working on? He asked curiously. She smiled. You'll see tonight. At dinner, she handed him a small box tied with twine. Inside was a hand-carved figure of a cowboy sitting beside a small fire, with a girl wrapped in a blanket beside him. Caleb ran his fingers over it. Speechless. It's not perfect, she said shyly, but it's a thank you. For saving me, for giving me warmth when I had nothing. Caleb swallowed hard. It's the best gift I've ever been given. Spring came early that year. The snow melted into green fields and the ranch came alive with cattle and wildflowers. Clara stayed on, helping Mrs. Miller and learning to manage the accounts. The ranch hands grew fond of her, calling her Miss Sunshine. One warm evening, as the sun set behind the hills, Clara stood on the porch. Mr. Hunter, she said softly, I don't want to overstay my welcome. I'll find work in town soon. Caleb shook his head. You don't need to go anywhere, Clara. You've brought life back to this place. If you'd like to stay, I'd be mighty grateful. She smiled, eyes glistening. I'd love to stay. A year passed, and the Hunter Ranch had never looked more beautiful. The townsfolk gathered for a Christmas feast, singing carols and laughing as snow fell gently outside. Clara stood by the fireplace, her heart full. Caleb approached with a small velvet box. He opened it to reveal a silver locket engraved with the words, Home is where kindness begins. Caleb took her hand. Clara May, last Christmas you came into my life when I least expected it. You filled this house with light again. Will you make this your home forever? Tears filled her eyes as she whispered, Yes. Caleb smiled and placed the locket around her neck. The guests cheered, and outside the snow began to fall softly again. But this time, Clara wasn't shivering in the cold. She was standing by the fire, wrapped in love, warmth, and the promise of forever.